I thought I'd show you some things that aren't junk. I have just a small collection of oceanic art. And this is one of the pieces. This is a hardwood storyboard from the island of Palau. Now the island of Palau is an island that has a stone underneath it. It's a volcanic island. And this storyboard depicts the people from the island of Yap, which did not have the type of stone underneath the surface, coming to Palau and carving out giant stone discs that they used as money. And these Yapese people would come in outrigger canoes, carve the discs, move them into the canoes, and take them back to Yap. Some of these stone discs that are on Yap sit along the paths, and some of them weigh 8,000 pounds. So I don't know how in the world they got them into outrigger canoes and took them back, but they did. Now this is one of the themes you'll see in a storyboard, and this storyboard you can see was carved in 1996. It may have been carved at the prison on Palau, where they taught the prisoners to carve, and then they sold the storyboards through sometimes the prison gift shop, and it helped to raise funds to run the prison. And it also is something that now the men that got out of prison would be able to make a living at carving storyboards. Now this was called airport art or tourist art because it was also sold in shops and in the airport. And most of the tourists in the 1960s and 70s and 80s and 90s were coming from Guam. They would fly in from Guam. They were American tourists, a lot of them. And they wanted to buy a storyboard. That was like the thing to do when you went to Palau. You had to get a storyboard to take home as a souvenir. In fact, there was such a, I want to say like a rabid tourist want or need for these storyboards in the 1970s that the carvers made the shopkeepers promise not to give out the directions to their houses, because otherwise they had tourists coming to their doors and pestering them to carve them a storyboard. The shops would run out of storyboards and there weren't enough for all the tourists. Now this storyboard has some palm trees. The faces are carved kind of crudely, but there's the stone money. It has a nice little border around it. And this is carved on very hard wood. So let me turn it over here. And you can see it's a piece of hard wood. It's very heavy. Sometimes they were carved on wood that they had cut out in the shape of a fish. Some of them are quite big. Some could be like 3 foot long. Now the origin of these storyboards happened when the islanders realized that the visitors wanted to buy these carvings. These carvings originally would have been on the beams in the men's house. The men's house is a house called a buoy. And the men's house is exclusively for men. You could call it like a men's organization or club. Women and children are not allowed to go into the men's house. It was a place where there were secret ceremonies, where boys were initiated into becoming men, and those secrets were closely guarded. I don't even know that many people that went to the island to study the culture learned about what went on in the men's houses. But in these buoy, the beams were all carved up with different stories and legends. Now some of the legends from the buoy were transferred onto these portable storyboards that would be sold to tourists. But there were some stories that were on the beams of the buoy Some of them were they were very strange stories. Some of them were very odd sexual stories. And you're not going to see that carved on storyboards. I have another storyboard that has the legend of the breadfruit tree, and I'll put that on another video. But I just thought I'd show you some of the oceanic art, which I appreciate a lot. And I don't have a big collection, but when I see something that interests me, and it really has to interest me a lot, then I might get it. And these are things that I probably will not be putting in the Tiki room, but I have them displayed around the house. Now the biggest stone discs weighed 8,000 pounds, like I said, and they would just sit along the paths on the island of Yap. And the only thing that changed was the ownership. They were not moved. So in other words, let's say you owned one of these huge stones and you wanted to buy a canoe from a man who was building canoes on Yap. So you might trade him the big stone for the canoe, and then now he would own the big stone. And he could trade the big stone to someone else for something else. At one time it could even be traded for a wife. Now you might ask, well, why would this be worth anything? It's just stone money. But it's the same concept, just like in the United States, where you just have pieces of paper, right, that are money. It's just rag content paper. It's not really worth anything. But what makes it worth something is that someone else can trade it for something else. And this stone money, there was only a certain amount on Yap, and they weren't bringing any more. So it was just a commodity that it represented something you could trade for something else. So that's the way money works. I mean, you know, when you think about it, nothing is worth anything. You talk about gold or silver, nothing is really worth anything. You can't eat gold or silver, right? It's just a thing that somebody values, that they want, that they can trade for something else. And I'll show you another one on the beginning of another video. But now let's get to the junk Tiki room. Okay, now let's see about this. I'm going to be taping off some stripes here. I don't know how many stripes a real one would have, or if they even have stripes. I haven't really looked into it, but I'm just going to do 2 stripes on this. And I have a little bit of red acrylic paint left over, and I'm going to try to give it a little light staining. Okay, so all I'm doing now is I have some acrylic paint on a wet rag, and I'm just going to put some of this reddish stain on here. I have no idea what this will turn out to look like. It may turn out looking like crap, but we're gonna see. So I'm gonna go with this red. I'm using red just because I had red. I'm going to use up stuff I have around here. Now I got a little bit of fruit wood stain. I was thinking of using walnut. I'm just going to put that right over the wet paint. I don't know if this is going to bleed underneath or what it's going to do. And I'm doing it kind of like sporadically. I just don't want to have it like all over, just like here and there. And maybe I'm just gonna mess it up with this stain a bit. Like I said, just not like perfect, just kind of here and there. Who knows what it's gonna turn out to look like? I don't know. Should have put gloves on, hey? Yeah, well. Sometimes you're just dumb. Okay, and then let's just let this thing dry And then I'm going to remove the tape. Here's some walnut stain. I don't want to get too much of this on there, but I'm just going to kind of just make it look dirty and old here. Let's do a little. I don't know, does that look faded out? Put a little on the handle too here. What do you think? I still would have liked to have gotten some white on there, but maybe this is okay without the white. I'm trying to picture it hanging up. Well, let's let that baby dry out. And okay, so this is how it turned out. And the handle. And I think it looks okay. What do you think? I'm just gonna be hanging this up. It's gonna be part of the nautical stuff hanging from the ceiling. I took off a leather strap that was on, and I'm gonna drill a hole all the way through this end here, and there's a hole already on both sides, but it doesn't go through. So drill a small hole through, and I'm just gonna hang it up using some fishing line, so you can't really see the line that it's hanging on. But I like that a lot better than the way it was when it was just like a brand new looking decorative piece.